Hopefully one of these areas has popped open or you've heard about it at some point from Microsoft. And I will say Microsoft especially is very, very focused on the Power Platform. Tons of money going into AI to help build Power Automate and help build Power Apps and different things that are happening. I think AI is even being introduced right now to Power BI. So there's a lot of different areas where we're seeing just Microsoft put a lot of money into all of these things, which is exciting. So we're going to start off with Power BI. We'll talk about Power BI first. So if you have not used Power BI with Business Central or any Dynamics 365 product, I highly recommend you do so. Powerful reporting, dashboarding, tools for analyzing Business Central data. So Business Central is really good at getting the data, really good at hosting the data. Sometimes it's not the best at giving the reporting that users and executives need. So we'll talk through that and why we like to use Power BI. Next is Power Automate. So Power Automate is going to help you automate business processes through workflow and integrations. So we can build both of those on Power Automate. In fact, at my firm, we are doing this. We've been doing this for years. We're using Power Automate to do all of our integrations, all of our automations, all of our customizations. So lots of things that we can do with Power Automate. And we'll talk through some of those use cases. And then last but not least, Power Apps. So Microsoft has given the capability in the Power Platform to create your own applications. We're going to talk about why we may create applications and why we wouldn't just use Business Central. And we'll talk about who's using these and how we can use those to streamline processes. But before we get started, a little bit about myself. I am a Dynamics user group member and sponsor. My company is actually sponsoring Dynamics Con Live coming up this coming year, actually in Denver, Colorado. And I just happened to be in Denver, Colorado tonight, passing through, and very excited to be at that conference. I've been at all the Dynamics user group live conferences except for this past one. So I'm hoping to be there this year. I've been teaching in the Dynamics community for over a decade. I started with Dynamics Great Plains or Dynamics GP and moved into Business Central, 7 years ago. So it's been a wild ride. International speaker, I travel all over. I was in Asia this year. I have actually not been to Africa yet, so it's on my list. Hopefully in the next couple of years, I'll be able to make that journey. I will say the trip to Asia just about wiped me out for a whole month after I got back. So I got to have a lot of energy to come over and switch 24 hours in our clock. But it's exciting. I get to go to a lot of different places. If you follow me on social media, I'm all over the world traveling and teaching about dynamics, which is what I love to do. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. Some of you probably have never heard of Nashville, but Nashville is the home of country music. So if you like country music or have ever heard country music, that's where it comes from. And I'm the mom of two boys. I have 2 boys and 1 dog. And so when I'm not working, that's what I'm doing. But before we get started into these 3 different areas, we're going to do a little exercise here. And I like to call this the power of the power. And so this is what I call a new customer onboarding form. And what the purpose of this exercise is to show you what we can do with the Power Platform. So if you're able to, or if you have a phone or device, if you want to scan this QR code and fill it out, I'm going to show you what you can actually do with this. But what this QR code does is it's actually sending it to a customer, and the customer is actually going to onboard themselves, meaning they're going to go and fill out all the information that you need from them so that you can sell to them. And when it's done, it's actually going to create a customer inside Business Central. But not only is it going to create a customer inside Business Central, I'm also, before it becomes a customer, I'm going to send it for approval via Power Automate, our platform. And then using Power Automate, I'm actually going to create a Microsoft Teams channel folder, and I'm going to send the customer an email. So this little QR code is doing a multitude of things that a lot of companies use paper for still. I'm very surprised in the US, we still see people writing things by hand or taking notes or having to call the customer to get the information. This is a huge time saver for organizations where they can just send a link or send a QR code to somebody, and then they can scan it and they can actually onboard themselves. So it's pretty cool. Has anyone scanned it yet? Who wants to be a test person on the scanning? I'll give everybody a second because I'm going to show you guys what's going to happen after you scan it. And I know there's a lot of fields on the form. I always tell people there's a lot of fields in the form because if your customer is going to onboard themselves and they're going to put the information into Business Central, we definitely want to make sure that they have all the information that you need to sell to them and not just their name and their email and all the boring stuff. So that's why we have so many fields on there. But once someone has submitted, I'm going to show you guys what this is going to do. And I think that over here in my Microsoft Teams, if I go to my approvals, I will start to see some approvals come in. And so what this Power Automate workflow is doing is it's actually going through running the Power Automate flow, and then it's going to send that out for approval. And once it gets approved, it's going to push it into Business Central. So while we're waiting for a few of those to come through, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the Power Automate looks like behind the scenes. So open this so I can see everybody. But while I'm doing this, raise your hand if you have ever done a Power Automate flow before, or you've ever opened Power Automate. Anyone in the room done Power Automate before? Wow. Okay. All new to you guys, which is exciting because I want to definitely see what happens here. But we're getting some approvals here, so I'll approve those in just a second. But before I do that, let me just show you what this is doing. So this is make.powerautomate.com. Used to be Microsoft Flow, and then Microsoft changed the name to Power Automate. But it is part of the Business Central licensing. So if you are using Business Central Cloud, you get Power Automate for free. So what I'm showing you today, you can go back and do on your own. But what I did for this flow, I'm just going to go into Edit, and I'm going to show you what the steps are here that it's doing. So the first thing it's doing is it's looking for when a new response is submitted. So it's looking for that response coming from a Microsoft form. Within the Microsoft stack, if I go back to these three dots, part of my Microsoft licensing, and almost every licensing, including Business Central, has forms of Microsoft forms. And forms are a way that you can get data in an organization or get data outside of an organization, and then you can do things with that data. So what I sent you guys on that QR code, that's a form, and I'll show you that form in a second. So I said, when a new response is submitted to this form, get the response details for that form, create an approval. Now, this is not a Business Central workflow approval. This is a Power Automate approval. So Power Automate has its own approval engine. Why would I use Power Automate and not Business Central? Get that question a lot. Okay, if I approve a customer inside of Business Central, do any other steps happen other than an email be sent to the approver? And the answer I'll just answer for you is no. Nothing else happens. You just approve it and it's done. And the approver gets the person who submitted gets an email letting them know it's been approved. With this, when I create the approval, so I got the response details, I created the approval. Once it's approved, I can set a condition and I can say, if it gets approved, set off a whole chain of events. Now, the chain of events that you can set off, almost unlimited. And these are just three of the ones that I've actually set up for this demo environment. But if I wanted to, I could set up more actions in this flow. And then over here, I also can set up some actions if it's not approved. So if I decline it, I probably want something to happen. Well, what do I want to have happen? I could have it send an email to the salesperson letting them know, hey, this customer's not approved. Or I can send an email back to the customer saying, hey, we're missing some information. I could do multiple things on if no, but I'm just going to say if yes, because that's going to make it easier for our use case. So once it's been approved, what's it going to do? It's going to create a record inside of Business Central. And I have it going into my sandbox environment, my company. I'm grabbing the 2.0 API category. Now, don't worry, guys, you don't have to memorize this. I have a video on my blog showing you how to do it. Um, but I have version 2.0. I grabbed the customers table out of BC. And if I click on this, you can actually see a whole bunch of tables that Microsoft actually exposes that you can do this with. We have items, we have purchase invoices, we have sales orders, sales lines, all kinds of stuff in here. But I just chose plain old customers. And then down here, because I got those form response details up at the top, I can come down here and I can actually map those in. And if I click on one of these fields, it's actually going to open up this dynamic content window where it's going to say, out of the form, which one belongs where? And I'll just do something dumb here, but I'll just add state. And I could add state here. Or maybe I want to add the contact person name. So I could click here, go to my content, go to my content, and then just add a random field here. So this is where you do the mapping. This is part of the connector. And you can see there's quite a bit of fields here. One limitation we ran into is that when we're doing integrations with Power Automate, you will notice that there's maybe, I would say 20, 25 fields available on the customer API out of the box. But what happens if you create a custom field on the customer API? Or what happens if you don't have the field that you're looking for here? Because there are fields that are on the customer card that are not here. Well, how do you handle that? Well, you could do two things. One, you could have a developer write a new API and expose the fields for you and then publish it and pull it through. Or you can, there's a couple tools. I think one is from Eric Hogard and one is from Jeremy Visca, where you can create your own APIs, so you don't need a developer. But if you run into issues where you're trying to map things in Power Automate and the fields aren't available, you are going to need an API. So that's a little bit of a hiccup that you can run into. But for the most part, if I'm just doing customers or vendors, I usually have the fields that I need on here. So here's where I mapped it. Then I told it, after it's been mapped and created in BC, go ahead and send an email to the billing contact email address. And this is going to be what the customer put in or what you put in. And that I'm going to give them a little message. Welcome to the ABC group. We're glad you're here. I even could put an attachment to this if I wanted to, which I've done in the past, especially for like vendor onboarding where I want to send them a form, or with the customer onboarding, maybe I also want to send them some instructions or a welcome guide or whatever I want to send them. I could do that here in Power Automate. I could also send an email after this email internally to another person in my organization, letting them know there's a new customer. But instead of doing that, I actually created a Microsoft channel. So I said, hey, go out to Teams and create a channel and post about that channel every time a new customer is onboarded. So these are the steps that are happening in this flow. And if I wanted to, I could come down here and add an action, and I could add any kind of action I wanted. So for instance, if I wanted a Teams action, I could search for Teams. Here's Microsoft Teams, and then I can come down here, and here's all my out-of-the-box connectors for Teams that I can do, which is quite a bit. So maybe I want to post a message in a chat or a channel, and I want to post in, let's just pick a team. Let's do chat. And if you notice, one of your options there was going to be a Teams chat as well. So you could just send it to a couple people. But I'm going to send it to the BC demo team, and I'm going to tell it what channel. So let's just do our general channel. New customer is added. Please see BC. And then what I'm going to do also, this is just a really sloppy, really quick message, but what I can do is I can come and grab the customer number, and I can grab the display name from BC. All right, so now they'll know where to go to look at that. All right, so that's in place, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now that would be the step that's going to happen after this create a channel step, which is pretty cool. All right, so we've seen the flow. I'm going to go over here to the form, which here's the form piece of it. And I was showing you hey, these are pretty easy to create. This is a Microsoft form. Microsoft Forms available for free. They also have some templates out there, which is really nice. And so you can go out here and all you do, super, super easy, is you just create fields. So is it a text field? Is it a date field? Is it a choice field? Here's all your options, a ranking, a like, and you can actually create one by one new fields. And you can ask anything that you want, which is really nice. So you can use this for polls. You can use it for forms for people to fill out. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can actually use this for. All right, so that's the form. That's what we filled out. And then after you create a form, you go and collect responses. And you can collect responses via URL. You can do a QR code like I just showed you. You can email it directly to a person, or you can embed it in a website. So if you have a website, you could actually put this on your website and say, just direct people to your website page and say, here's where our new customer onboarding form is, and they could get it from there. So pretty nice. Lots of possibilities of what you can do with that. All right, so we have some responses that came in, I believe, and so let me go back to my other teams. I hate when I have more than one team open. Okay, so let's see. I'll go into my activity, and it looks like I have a couple approvals coming in. Just submit that guy to the lobby while we're sitting here. All right, so Quality Sounds. Someone come in here from Quality Sounds, and so I can make a comment. This is approved. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. And let's approve another one. Let's do Rain Technologies. And I'm going to approve these just so I can show you all what this is actually doing. So again, this will come through Teams. I'll also get an email message where I can approve it through the email message, but you will notice that Microsoft does create an approvals board inside of Microsoft Teams where you can see all your Power Automate flows that came in, what you've approved, what you've rejected, all of that would be here in the board. So now that that's there, I'm actually going to go into Teams, and I'll go into my BC demo team here. And if I look over here, I have all these hidden teams, but Quality Sounds, yep, that was one of our submissions, right? Rain Technologies. So this actually went out and created a whole new Teams channel for that customer. So now I could go out and I could start creating files for them, notes about them, all of that. I've already created that and it's ready to go. So that's pretty cool. And then let me see if it actually picks up that last step I added, because I added that before. No, I don't think it's going to add it because we ran that one after I had the QR code sent out. But whoever submitted Quality Sounds and whoever submitted the other one with the technologies, you guys should be getting an email from me welcoming you to ABC Consulting Group. So pretty cool stuff. Lots of different things that you can do with this. I will say with Power Automate, we'll get into it in a second, hundreds and hundreds of connectors now. So sky's kind of the limit. I just tell people, like, what do you need to automate? And if you have something you want to automate, we can automate it. Like, I'm pretty sure we can do it. You just have to tell me what you want to automate. But I'm going to stop right there. If you guys have any questions, you guys can feel free to put them in the chat, or I'll just take some quick breaks and see, are there any questions so far on that before I move on to Power Automate topic? Okay. Quiet. So I think someone will just have to unmute if there are questions because I can't hear them. All right. So that's really cool stuff. Let's talk about Power BI. Hopefully all of you have heard about Power BI. As you know, Microsoft has created Power BI long before Business Central came along, and it keeps getting refined. In fact, Microsoft just announced that they were going to add, I guess I would call it like a sister or brother or cousin to Power BI called Fabric. And I really don't know too much about Fabric yet. It's pretty new, but you know, the data and the analytics and the engines behind that to get the reports keep getting refined and fine-tuned. But what is Power BI allowing users to do? they can pull data into powerful and robust dashboards and reports to analyze the data inside Business Central. Business Central is a very great place to put data. Business Central doesn't necessarily have all the reporting tools that users need. That's just facts. One of the things I see a lot is that organizations are using more than one system. So BC is just their accounting system, but maybe they have a sales system, they have an operation system, they have other systems, and they need to get all that data in one place. Well, you can't do that inside BC. You just can't. So Power BI allows those users to get that. And it really is in a dashboard format. It's going to be visual reports. It's going to be really clean reports that we can take a look at, run, and see data and analytics in ways that are easy to understand. Accountants like Excel, accountants like spreadsheets, non-BC users, executive operations leaders, they all love Power BI. So it's a really great way, one, to get the data out, and two, if you're a consultant or a partner, it's a really great way to add services on to what you're already doing for your customers for Business Central. If you want the data real time, meaning, something happens over in BC and then you want to see it over in Power BI, you would have to have frequent refresh rates on your data, and that does cost more money than just the Power BI Pro license. So there's other Power BI licenses that will give you that capability. But if you're just getting started, Power BI Pro is a really great license. Here in the US, it's $10 per month. I have no idea what it is everywhere else. But for us, that's fairly affordable compared to Business Central. So it's a good add-on license for the users. And the cool thing is that Business Central has a lot of API URLs out of the box that can be connected with Power BI. I don't know how many of you know this, but if you go into Business Central, go into my dev environment here, and if you go to web services, now just Business Central Cloud, we're not talking about on-prem. And if I go into web services, I will actually see there a ton of Power BI APIs. So a lot of people are like, well, BC doesn't really have Power BI. And it's like, well, yeah, true, right now. I think that's going to change. But there are some out of the box reports from Microsoft. They're okay. They're not great. But what you can do is you can actually take any of these APIs and you can plug them into Power BI. So from web services, if something is published, you can actually grab this URL, whatever URL this is, and you can actually dump it into Power BI. And I brought my laptop that didn't have Power BI installed, so give me a second, but I'm going to log in here real quick. And then I'll show you how we can actually just dump these URLs in here. While I'm doing this, how many people have actually, by show of hands, how many people have actually used Power BI before? Anybody? Few of you? Okay, good. A little bit more popular, right? Good. At least I'm not the only one. All right. So when you're in Power BI, you have the capability to get data from other sources when you go out there. And if you notice, or many of you who have been in there lately have noticed, Business Central is now a connector that's in Power BI. Before, when you went to get data, it was not there and you had to do the OData. So it's pretty nice that you can actually click on Business Central now when you're in Power Automate and establish that connection. Of course, you have to be logged in as the same user that has the Business Central license. So we'll log in here and we'll connect. And when you do it this way, it's actually going to take you through to those data sources and you'll be able to pick those tables that you want. So this is a really nice way to do it because in here, I can see my sandboxes and my production, and then I can actually go into those companies inside, just like I would navigate inside of BC, and I can get those APIs. So if you notice here, there's quite a few APIs in here. So if I just wanted a customer list, I could grab that and evaluate it and see what's in there. Looks pretty good. And then I can actually just load that in. You can do transform if you want to transform it, change your columns, remove columns, things like that. But within a few seconds now with that get data, you can actually just plug this in and go. Now, if you want to use those custom APIs, if you publish the API inside BC, you should see it now in Power Automate. But if it doesn't show up, you also could just do the get OData, and you could actually go in and you could actually, build your own reports with those OData APIs. So there's quite a few options now. So just grab a couple of things here. ID, name. Honestly, I can't really tell which ones I'm grabbing because there's so many fields that are in here, but let's grab, we get display name. We've got the GUID ID. That's ugly. We don't want that. Let's get rid of that one. And let's just add like maybe credit limit. So over here, I can grab my data. Over here, I've actually put the data into a table, not the prettiest of tables, but I can actually expand this out. And how many of you are noticing something? Can I make this a little bit bigger? Let's get my columns a little bit bigger. And y'all have to forgive me, my Power Automate skills, but I am not in Power Automate a whole lot of times. So come on. Try to do like a 1080. Trying to make this a little bit bigger so you all can actually see what I'm seeing. Maybe zoom in here. Anyone notice anything from our exercise that we just did? Quali Sounds, are you in the room? Rain Technologies, are you in the room? My new customers, they're here on my list. So I just took my customer list from my sandbox, and here's my new customers that are onboarding themselves. Awesome. I don't have anyone with a balance right now except for one person, so that's kind of boring, but pretty cool. We can actually just take a table from BC and just dump out that data. Now, this is not the prettiest graph, but it's that quick with Power BI now. Has changed dramatically in the last 4 years. So if you haven't messed around with Power BI, I highly, highly recommend you do, because this is a great way, one, to get your data out of BC, but two, if you're a consultant, great way to add services to your customers. Now, some of you may look at that window that we were just in for Power BI and say, that's very intimidating. I don't want to do that. It seems really hard. Okay. So I have a little, what do I want to call it? Trick, I guess is a good way to put it. I work with a company from Australia called Fenwick Gold, and Fenwick Gold has Power BI reports in Power BI App Source. So I don't know if anyone knows this, but Power BI has their own app source. And within that app source, Fenwick Gold has published dashboards for finance, purchase, sales, inventory, manufacturing. So there are dashboards that you can buy from them. You pay a monthly subscription and you get access to all of these dashboards with that monthly subscription. You connect it to your data and you are ready to go. So if you don't want to create reports from scratch, or your customers don't want to pay for it, this is a very good alternative. Fantastic alternative, honestly, and something I'd never seen in any other system before. So these are just some of the samples. I don't have it connected to my data right now, but these are some of the sample reports that come out of the box with Fenwick Gold. So this is a really good option. So it's called Fenwick Gold. There's Power BI Gold for finance, Power BI Gold for purchasing, Power BI Gold for sales, and Power BI Gold for inventory. So these are something to look out for. I think, I'm trying to remember in the US, I think if you want all of them, it's like $40 US a month. But if you just want like one, I think it's $5 per user. So it's not bad. Now, the only caveat is you do have to have a Power BI Pro license for any Power BI reporting inside of BC. So that doesn't change. But these are a really great way to get started. And you can edit these once you do download them into your app source. You can edit them, change the colors, change the filters. do some things like that. So highly recommend taking a look at that. I have a very, very good beloved friend in the community, Belinda Allen. Belinda and I both came from a Dynamics GP background. We both implemented and used Dynamics GP for a very long time. She is actually now teaching a Power BI class online, on demand. It's $14.99 US dollars. That's super, super cheap in the US for training. I don't know anyone who can get Power BI training for that much. So if you go out to her website, like Belinda Allen, I think it's belindaallen.com. She's actually got a course out here, Intro to Power BI or Power BI Data Analyst, and she'll actually walk you through step by step how to become a Power BI analyst. So 11 and a half hours of training, 11 and a half hours for $14.99 US dollars. That's super, super good. She is an excellent trainer when it comes to reporting. She's been working with Business Central and different business applications, so she understands that part of it, and that's what makes these classes really, really a great option for learning it. So the great thing about this class too is you can just buy it and do it on demand. You don't have to be sitting in a classroom. You don't have to go anywhere. You can do this at home. So great option for everybody who wants to get into Power BI. All right, and I will send this deck out to the organizers afterwards so you guys can have these links and you can go check that out. All right, Power Automate, we did talk about Power Automate just a little bit. We said getting started. Power Automate is included with Dynamics 365 Business Central. So things that you can do with Power Automate: document and record approvals, which we just saw. We just approved customer records, integration of records between systems, automations of emails and notifications, and much, much more. There are hundreds of connectors available, so it can be used in many, many cases. Only caveat is Microsoft Now, and I just learned this a few weeks ago, is going to start limiting how many calls per user you can use with Power Automate. I think they're going to go up to 40,000 per user per day, I believe. So there are some limitations, especially if you have high integration volume. So you'll just have to check out Microsoft compliance for that. But anyway, we're not too concerned about it right now. But there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. And I just showed you guys what we can do with it. So here's some use cases of what we've used Power Automate for since its inception to transform customer processes. In the integrations, we've done integrations with Concur, which is an expense management tool. We've done integrations with Blackline, which is a financial closing tool. We've done integrations with Salesforce, a CRM. We've done integrations with third-party logistics companies and warehouses. We're actually doing a big integration project right now with Dynamics 365 for sales, not just connecting like the Dataverse connector, but complicated workflow integrations that we're working on right now. So integrations, two systems passing the data back and forth, 100% possible with Power Automate. Notifications when new records are created or changed in Business Central and or CRM. So we have a lot of customers who say, hey, if something happens in BC, I want to know about it. We can use Power Automate to send an email or send a Teams message or send a chat or whatever we want to do to let someone know something's happened. We've used it to trigger the creation of Teams and SharePoint folders. You guys noticed I created a Teams folder. You can easily do that with SharePoint. You can do that with OneDrive. You can create folders in different locations. You can also send Outlook emails based on Business Central triggers. We're doing one right now that when a sales order gets created in Business Central, it's sending an email out to the accounting team, letting them know to go look at it and process it. Pretty nice. So no one has to tell them it's there. Business Central also has out-of-the-box Power Automate workflows for vendors, general ledger entries, purchase orders, and more. And as we just saw, we're also using it almost every project for customer and vendor onboarding. So that's just become part of our normal implementation process. I did want to show you back in make.powerautomate.com. There are two things I want to show you if you want to get started with this. The first thing is connectors. I told you there's hundreds of connectors, but for you to believe it, you're going to have to come out and see it for yourself. if you go to the connectors section, these are all the connectors that are available. Anyone notice Gmail here is now the Microsoft competitor? Slack, also a Microsoft competitor. We've got Oracle connectors, we've got SAP connectors, we've got, gosh, this guy's kind of the limit. So you just start coming out here. Here's Amazon. What? Crazy. These are Microsoft's competitors. So it's kind of an open source type of work, you know, where we're seeing connectors come in from all over. And again, I know I told you guys Fortune 500 companies are using this in the US. So if they're using it, obviously they have a lot of apps, and those apps keep getting added here. So a lot of connectors. So if you're ever wondering if a product or an app someone uses is on here, always good to come up here and use this search bar and see if it's in here. Also templates on make.powerautomate.com. You actually will see a bunch of templates out here, and you can just read a couple of these. Save Gmail attachments to a Dropbox folder, save Outlook email attachments to your OneDrive, save Outlook email attachments to Dropbox, all kinds of stuff in here. Trigger a flow with a Power BI data-driven alert. So something happens in Power BI, send out a Power Automate flow. Send an email for new tweets about a certain keyword. I mean, there's tons of templates out here, but for those of you who deal with Business Central or Dynamics, you can actually just come out here and search for Business Central, and you can see all the out-of-the-box templates that Microsoft has created for Business Central. Quite a lot. So these are also ways that you can go ahead and get started. So if I just do notify Business Central when a contact changes, or request approval for a Business Central item, these are ones that I can actually just come in. Let's just choose something. And when I choose it, it'll actually automatically connect to my connectors here. Let me sign in real quick. It's going to sign me in, and then I just hit continue. And at that point, I actually have a template. Now, I didn't do anything. You guys saw this. I just grabbed a random one. But in here, I can see it's letting me know when a row is added, modified, or deleted in the accounts table, which is for the Business Central accounts. It's got, you know, filters and conditions here, but also over here, it's got what happens if yes and what happens if no. Now, this isn't necessarily a flow that's just going to run out of the box, but it's giving me a template to show me things that I can do to happen in that flow, essentially, and what I would use as a template. So these are really good if you just want to kind of mess around with it and see what Microsoft's doing in some of these templates. You can open the template and then kind of mimic those steps in your own flow, test it out, see how it goes, and then see if you can get it working. So Power Automate is just really, I think it's one of the fun tools. It's really, really fun to get in and learn. And once it starts working, you get really excited, and then you're just thinking about all the other things you could automate. So I always recommend getting into there. So easy ways to help you get started. I always recommend starting with very easy flows using those out-of-the-box templates. Try a couple of them out, see if they're working. Then you want to start working on more complex stuff. I did write a blog video on how to get started with a vendor approval. So very much like I just showed you, if you go out to my blog, you can actually follow along and try to do this on your own. I also recommend following Power Platform automation videos on YouTube. So many good videos now. It's crazy. Anytime I want to learn something new, I'm on YouTube, because there's just so many great Dynamics and Power Platform and Power Automate speakers. So great videos out there. I recommend going and searching for those topics. The Dynamics user group, Doug, also has a really great YouTube channel that has a ton of videos. So I recommend you check that out as well, because everyone who's presenting for the conferences, especially the virtual conference, that's all recorded and on demand on their channel. So really great places to learn and get started. Also, my partner in crime in Power Automate, Mary Myers, she works with World Max. She's on LinkedIn and Twitter. She specializes particularly in Business Central with Power Automate. So she is a Power Automate MVP, but she does specialize just in the BC side mostly. So she's got some really great content out there as well. So great person to learn from and try to mimic. Okay, last but not least, we have Power Apps. Power Apps are used by almost every Fortune 500 company in the United States. If you go to the Microsoft Power Apps website, there's a huge article on Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola actually redid a lot of their workflows and processes with Power Apps and Power Automate. And so they're one of the Microsoft case studies right now. But one thing I like to think about Power Apps is Power Apps are unlimited. It's I like to think of them as the replacement of homegrown applications. So many companies, 10, 15 years ago, they needed a developer in-house to create applications. They couldn't just go create an app. You needed a developer. With Power Apps, we have the capability for people that are citizen developers or regular people to be able to come in and create applications easily using interfaces and applications that you can use either in your organization or you can share outside the organization using Power Pages or portal apps. Power Apps allow you to access data from all systems in the organization. So if you're using more than just Business Central, it doesn't matter because you can get data from all different types of sources. And they are also used to get more data and then transfer it between systems using the power of Power Automate. So think about it as the Microsoft form I just sent you or had you fill out, but on steroids. Because it's not just a form where someone's filling in data, it's a form where I could select from a list. I could have it filter to different criteria within my organization. I can put some more complex, I would call it development, but it's really not development, but rules into those forms. Have the users fill out the form and then have that form go to other places in the organization. So really, Power Apps allows users to eliminate manual spreadsheets, manual paper processes, emails, phone calls, anything where data can't be transferred automatically. This is where we can come in and create Power Apps and make it really powerful. So some use cases for Power Apps. Here's some common use cases, although, like I said, the sky is the limit. So I recommend reading some of the case studies of what Microsoft's doing with Power Apps and people are doing with them. But employee onboarding app. So new employees in an organization, you can actually have a Power App where they go and fill out all their information, walks them through step by step. They can choose their benefits, vacation, all these things. And then that gets submitted and they go to a payroll company or maybe Business Central. Who knows? Time off and PTO app. So you need someone to fill out a form to say, is their time off approved for vacation or holiday? And the PTO app where you could say, you have to fill out this form in order to get time off. Very popular in the US. We don't get a lot of time off. So that they fill that out and then that goes for approval and then that goes into payroll. For BC, we've seen inventory count apps be built where you can scan barcodes and count inventory using Power Apps. Purchasing or sales apps where you can actually purchase or sell through the app and then that sends the data into BC. Customer portal or vendor portal where you're getting the data from BC and putting it into a app where users can interact with it, log in and interact with it. Call that a portal. And then we actually built one for scrap counts where at manufacturing, if they have leftovers or waste, they can actually count it, put the quantity into the app, hit submit, and then that goes into Business Central. So a lot of different use cases here where you can actually use that. One thing I do want to recommend, if you are going to be pulling data from Business Central and sending data back to Business Central, the users of that app will need a Business Central license to avoid multiplexing. So just keep that in mind. We've had people build apps where they're like, well, now people don't have to use BC, but Microsoft says if you're using BC data in an app, you still have to have a BC license. Power Apps are citizen developer apps, so you don't have to be a developer to create them. Microsoft does offer app in a day classes usually in a lot of different places. And so I think they were doing some of those virtually as well, where you can learn how to build these apps in a day. But I took the class, I'm not a developer, and I was able to build an app. It's that simple. I always recommend getting started with a simple app that collects data and sends it somewhere via email or with an out of the box connector to get started. So don't try to go build this super complicated multi-step app. You're just going to get frustrated. Like, start with something simple, and then you can start building something with Business Central itself. I recommended a YouTube video on here, and I'll just show you which one so you can go back and follow it. I hate when I have these apps. This guy, Kevin Stravert, he actually built a YouTube video, how to use Microsoft Power Apps, where he walks through step by step on how to simply get started with Power Apps. So definitely recommend this one. Pretty good starting or getting an intro to it. And just like Power Automate, we can come back into our applications within Microsoft and we can go to Power Apps from here. And we'll open it up here. And if we go into Create, you can go out and you can see all the different things that you can do from here. You can create a blank app. You can create an app from Dataverse, SharePoint, SQL, Excel, images. So these are some of the things you can do. You can also go into Learn here, where you can learn how to do some of these. They have like self-guided learning, like how to build a Canvas app, how to customize a Canvas app. They've got some get it started and how to articles out here. So this is one that you're just going to have to really, I always say with Power Apps, get your hands dirty and try to build one yourself. But it is a fun thing to do. I think these two things are just some of my favorite things inside the Microsoft environment right now. So way more fun than accounting systems. But definitely recommend going out here and getting started and starting to learn that. All right, I'm going to open the floor for questions because I'm sure we have more presenters about to come in. I know we are on mute right now, so if there are any questions, someone's just going to have to unmute me or unmute you. You guys can hear me, I can't hear you.
Shannon, thank you for
Yes.
the presentation.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's been insightful. And I think we'll pick questions either from the chat or from the room. Okay.
Perfect.
Hello. Anyone with a question? Maybe I'll start. Shannon.
Come speak from me.
Hello. Good morning, Shannon.
Hi. Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Chacha. Maybe I'll start specifically on the Power BI. That's where my question is, on the licensing bit.
Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned that if we need a real-time refresh, it's a bit expensive as opposed to the other refresh. No, like
Yes.
if we need real-time data, it's a bit expensive as opposed to refresh. Does that imply that there are two licenses as applied on those two kind of data?
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
you can shed light on that.
Yeah, that's a great question because I get that one a lot. So this is the Power BI licensing chart. It's a little bit complicated when you try to like figure out what you actually need. But this is the one that most users have, which is going to be the Power BI Pro, which is the $10 per user per month, US dollars. This one does not give you those unlimited data refreshes. So this is going to be like the very simple version of the license. This one over here, the premium, this one is going to be the one that's going to give you those more unlimited refreshes. So this Power BI Premium, it's a $10 per user difference. This one over here, the big one, this is for enterprise level customers. So if you have a ton of users with a lot of data and that data is taking a lot of refreshing, usually those bigger companies are over here in this bracket. But if you want more frequent refreshes, you can upgrade from this license to this license and that will give that to you. It won't be real time because obviously the data needs to pull, but it will be a lot more than just once a day, which is usually what you get with Power BI Pro. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. That's a bit clear from our end. Maybe the last
Good.
question from me is about the Power Automate.
Sure.
I believe Business Central itself has workflows. What do you feel is the great advantage of using the Power Automate over the normal workflows that we're used to from the NAV and the Business Central?
Right. No, 100%. That's a great question. And we get that question a lot. Why use Power Automate workflow over this? Well, with Business Central workflow, you just approve a record and you're done. So a vendor gets submitted for approval, someone approves it, nothing else happens, right? It just gets approved. And then you move on and you do whatever you need to do in BC. In this case, after my customer got approved, I was able to do 3 things that a user might have to go out and do. So I've seen people where after the vendor's created or the customer's created, they have to create a folder, they have to send them an email, they have to put a note in Teams and let someone else know. So rather than them do all those steps manually, if I use Power Automate, I can then trigger a whole bunch of events to happen after that and hopefully automate any process that they're doing. So I'll walk through with the users and say, okay, after the customer's approved, what do you do? And they'll tell me, oh, well, I have to take this to so-and-so, or I have to email, or I have to do this. And so then I figure out, can we do that with Power Automate? And usually we can. So that's going to be the big advantage. It's more than just approvals, it's approvals with other actions for automation.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
That answered your question. Yes.
Thank you very much. There are 2 questions on the chat. Maybe because of time, I'll let you respond on one, and then the rest maybe you can
sure.
do a
I can
text
answer
on
in
the
the
same.
chat. Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe you take the first one.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Good question. Must you have a Power BI workspace for you to create a connection to Power BI from BC on-prem? So you do have to have for the BC on-prem and the BC cloud, you do have to have Power BI desktop. So you can actually just go to powerbi.com and download the desktop version. Once you have the desktop version, you can connect, but you do have to have the pro license, the $10 per user per month license to create those workspaces. So the answer is yes to that one. And I will answer the gateway question in the chat. So you guys can move on to the next answer.
You could maybe, Sharon, kindly just respond on that very fast.
Sure.
Yeah, just respond to the last one.
Yeah, so the Power BI gateway actually does the refreshes, but how often you can refresh, and I think this question was related to the refresh response. How often you refresh is limited by your license. So that's why you would need the premium over the pro. Both do refreshes, it's just how often can you refresh, and it's limited with that lower license. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna. The presentation was awesome. Yeah, thank you for your time. Maybe you can wave. Say hi.
Good night from the US. Good night, everyone. Bye.
All right, thank you. Good day. Good day. So good morning, guys. Just wave.